Welcome, everyone, to session 2 of our Insight series, Designing Behavioral Health Environments for Trust, Support, and Recovery. I'm Dr. Melissa Steach with Pineapple, a behavioral health furniture design and manufacturing company. In today's session on movement, touch, and emotional regulation, we're going to explore something that's often overlooked in design conversations but immediately felt by the body. Movement, touch, and posture are not just preferences. They are regulatory inputs. Before someone cognitively interprets a space, their nervous system has already responded to it. Research in neuroscience and environmental psychology consistently shows that regulation is not just cognitive, it's embodied. So today, we're going to look at how environments either support or work against emotional regulation, particularly in high stress settings like behavioral health. We often think of emotional regulation as something that happens in the mind, but the reality is that emotional regulation is happening through the body constantly. Movement, tactile input, posture, and sensory stimulation are continuously feeding information into the nervous system. The environment is part of that loop. So when we design spaces, we're not just shaping an aesthetic experience, although I love a good aesthetic experience, we're shaping physiology. This aligns with what we see in the polyvagal theory developed by Dr. Stephen Borges to explain the autonomic nervous system, ANS, through a hierarchical three-part system focusing on safety and survival, which means that safety and threat are interpreted through physical cues, not just conscious thought. And before we go any further, I want you to pause for just a moment. I know this slide, I was like, whoa, pause. So you are seeing the right thing. I want you to pause for just a moment. Wherever you're sitting right now, even if that's in the car, just notice your body. Just take a moment, notice your body. Are you completely still? Or are you shifting slightly, adjusting, maybe leaning or repositioning? You don't need to change anything, just notice it. And now that you've noticed it, even if it feels comfortable, do you feel the slightest desire to move? I always do. And maybe you've already made a very small movement, like you've shifted your posture slightly in your chair or your car, or where you're sitting in your car. Maybe you've rolled your shoulders back or gently rocked forward and back. That instinct to move, that's regulation. And your body is constantly trying to find balance, often before you're even aware of it. One of the most underutilized tools in behavioral health environments is movement. Small, repetitive movements like rocking, shifting, adjusting posture can activate parasympathetic responses. In other words, this is the body's rest and digest or feed and breathe system. This branch of the autonomic nervous system helps to conserve energy, slow down the heart rate, increase intestinal activity, and relax muscles in the gastrointestinal tract. These are the same movement behaviors we see in self-soothing actions across the lifespan, no matter who you are, no matter your age, no matter where you are. And when environments prohibit people's choice of movement, we often see the opposite effect in them: increased agitation, restlessness, escalation. And this is where movement supportive furniture becomes incredibly interesting. For example, rocker-based seating introduces this controlled rhythmic motion. Nothing that's so fast back and forth that you become agitated and work yourself up into a lather, but that slow, controlled rhythmic movement, like how you would soothe a baby. And that's important, not necessarily due to the product itself, but what that product enables. That's micro-regulation, grounding through motion, and a non-pharmacological pathway to calming. And studies on rhythmic movement, including rocking, have shown improvements in sleep consolidation and parasympathetic activation. So while formal clinical outcome data is still emerging in applied environments, we consistently see strong anecdotal alignment between movement supportive seating and reduced visible agitation, particularly in waiting and transitional spaces. And so this is something to be considered. I know sometimes on our first session, people who are not within the healthcare environment joined the insight session. And this could be a consideration for your waiting room lobby. How often have you gone into a commercial space or a business that is not healthcare related and seen a nice rocking chair? You know, some of these visits, even though it might not be healthcare, they can still be stress inducing. So just something to consider for our friends on the call who are not in healthcare. Now, touch. Touch is one of the fastest ways the nervous system assesses safety. Before someone consciously evaluates a space, they feel it. Is it rigid or forgiving? Is it warm or is it cold? Is it institutional or residential? These signals shape whether a space feels safe or controlled. In many behavioral health settings, materials are selected primarily for durability, and that's understandable. But durability without tactility can unintentionally signal harshness or a lack of care. It can feel what we describe as very institutional, and typically that phrase is not a positive one. Sensory modulation research shows that tactile input can directly influence emotional regulation and reduce stress. And in fact, there was a really fun study done where a student dressed as a regular person, not as a student, would ride an elevator up and down in the same business at the same time of day with a little clipboard. And she had 3 questions, very short survey that she would ask people on the elevator with her. And on some of these trips, she would have a cold beverage, and on some of these trips, she would have a warm beverage. And in every instance, she would say, "Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?" People would always say, "Sure, you know, this is for a class assignment, whatever." Great, will you hold my coffee for me? And sometimes that was a cold beverage, sometimes that was hot. And she would ask questions. And then afterwards, she would say, "Oh, by the way, my professor is going to give you a call and follow up on your experience with this." So what happened over time, the study was actually about the perception of the person taking the survey based on the temperature or the tactile experience of holding this coffee, in this case, warm versus cold. And what they found is that those who held the warm beverage described the survey taker, the student, as lovely, warm, intelligent, polite, professional. Those who held the cold beverage described the student as cold, as very clinical, not very friendly. So just something as simple as that. So now if we are to dial up that volume, imagine that experience in a behavioral health setting or in a setting that is there to support people in highly agitated states, and also the staff who are there to support those people, and the families and the friends who come in to give care and visit those people. So when you think about it from that perspective, wow, tactility, temperature, the feel of something can make all of the difference. All of the difference in someone's experience from the onset. So now, when we think about this, when selecting furniture for behavioral health environments, it's imperative that you balance several important considerations. First is safety and risk reduction. That's addressing concerns like ligature risk, tampering, climbing, and contraband concealment. There's strength and durability. These environments place unique demands on materials and construction. And then third, there is the therapeutic environment itself, and elements like materials, lighting, acoustics, and ergonomics influence how people experience a space and how well they're able to regulate their stress. And here, our goal is to balance all three in ways that ultimately support trust, safety, and recovery. And when we zoom into movement and regulation within this framework, we're really balancing three things: the safety and risk reduction, the therapeutic experience, long-term durability. And historically, these have really been treated as trade-offs. You can't have all three, but the truth is you can. And you just have to take more time in consideration and honestly, more empathy in design, whether you are a person who is designing the furniture or the layout, or even you are the decision maker who is part of a team that is going to shape this space for your staff, employees, the people you serve, and the community who the space is within. So what we're seeing and what the research really supports is that when the environments feel safer, when they are more conducive to empowering and supporting and really engaging humanity, that those core central sensory way feelings and being within space and with each other, it really provides a much more positive, healing, therapeutic space that supports a lot of modalities and helps align both mentally and objectively with the treatment that is being given on site. Now, today we focused on how movement, touch, and posture influence emotional regulation, and more importantly, how design can support those natural regulatory process instead of suppressing them. That's the thing, like sometimes when we think about calm, there is a fine line between being so calming, it's suppressing, it's almost deadening to to the senses, and that is depression. So is there enough stimulation to activate the mind in a way that is positive and healthy and allows room for growth and engagement and delight? And so we want to encourage you to join us for our CEU, where we go into more depth in this topic of designing for trust and recovery. And you can do that here at using the QR code, or you can reach out to me directly. Or if you're in other parts of the United States, these people, which I can connect you with directly as well, can support you in your area with any of your questions or needs, or even just visits to see how we might be of service to you. And with that, I will say thank you. These are meant to be short. I will stay on if there are questions or if someone would like to discuss anything, please feel free to come off mute. And I will leave you with this: emotional regulation doesn't begin in a moment of crisis. It begins upstream in the environment. And that means design has a much bigger role than we often give it credit for. So thank you. And I'd love to hear your thoughts or questions.